Yeah, just don't be offended for the moment. I have to transfer something to somebody. I'll be listening out of my. Okay, lady, do me a favor. Lady, what are we doing?
Learning Torah.
You're too close to the Torah. I close to the Halacha. Okay. You're right in the camera now.
No, but maybe I can
Hello.
follow.
Lady.
Well, right now we're outside. We're going to get inside
Okay.
Hashem a little later. I have to see what we left off. We had a little Hanukkah break. So I have to see what we finished this.
Where do you want me to go? Just barely just there. Yeah. There you go. They're fine. Just some foot. Just right there. So you're not your shoulders and that's distracting. Here. Yeah, it'd be fine.
Are we ready?
Yeah. So we're just out on you're live.
Okay.
And you're linked.
Welcome, everybody. Good evening to our new semester, post-Hanukkah semester. And we have a lot to do tonight. As we see, we have so many things open. And I'm going to first begin with a little recap on some post-Hanukkah laws. We want to get in some post-Hanukkah laws, some New Year laws, and some Heitevis laws. Quickly, summary, and then we have a lot of material to do. Okay, so after Hanukkah, we went through all of our 8 days. The halacha is that we have to take care of the leftovers. We have a menorah, we have wicks, we have a bowl, we have oil. So if you plan on saving a menorah for next year, there's not much you have to do. But if you were like some good Yidden who gave out thousands of menorahs to people, and you may find lots of used menorahs all over the kikar, did you? Mm-hmm. What do you do with them? If you gave out, disposable, so to say, menorahs that are one-time use, which they sell in stores, it's only meant for one-time use, what do you do with it? This was yesterday, the halacha, which we explained like this. The halacha is that you cannot dispose of kedusha items in a belittling manner. They must be put in geniza. That's why we never throw out tefillin. We never throw out a mezuzah. Even if it's possible, we put it in special geniza. It's safer. We don't throw it out. We put it in a special geniza. However, this only applies to kedusha items. There's a big difference between a kedusha item and a mitzvah item. A menorah, what is it defined as? That's the question. Tzitzis is a mitzvah item, not a kedusha item. So if a string, not mine, if a string happened to rip off somebody's tzitzis, then it is not considered a kedusha item. It's called a mitzvah item, of which the halacha is that the min hadin is allowed to be discarded even in the garbage, but it's proper not to. So what do we apply to the menorah?
What is shimush?
What
has to do with shimush?
Tashmisha kedusha. Well, that's something that tashmisha kedusha is like. Tashmisha kedusha is like the boxes of the tefillin that hold the tefillin. Okay. But the tefillin itself is kedusha.
Yeah,
it's the actual
kedusha. I'm talking about the menorah itself.
Oh, so what is it? That's the question.
The cups that hold the oil are kedusha item. The rest are mitzvah.
Okay, so none of it is kedusha. It's only mitzvah.
Okay.
The only thing that's kedusha is stam, sefer Torah, tefillin, and mezuzahs. Okay. That's the only thing that's kedusha itself. Why is it called kedusha? Because it has Hashem's names in it. It has God's names. It's been sanctified inside of them. However, the mitzvah items, a shayfer, a lulav, they're all schach, they're all tashmishay mitzvah. of which the halacha is by tashmisha mitzvah. As I said before, you can discard it. In adin, you can even discard it in the garbage, but you're not supposed to. Regarding schach especially, you're not supposed to. It's a very bad thing to do that. So what about the menorah? So the answer is like this. Practically, since most menorahs, especially the ones we're referring to, no one's throwing out an expensive menorah. You keep it for generations and you give it as a, as an inheritance to the future generation. So we're talking about here the disposable ones. The way they work is that they have glass bulbs that sit in them, which would make the menorah tashmishe mitzvah. It is a secondary byproduct use of the mitzvah itself. So therefore, the halacha is that you can do anything you want with it. You can throw it out, you can melt it, turn it into something. They have absolutely they're not even like tzitzis. Tzitzis is a mitzvah itself. The menorah is a use of a use because it's used to support the bulbs. Now, what about the bulbs? So that's where our question begins. What is the status of the bulbs? And the answer is that the bulbs are considered actual mitzvah. They're considered like mitzvah itself, or tashmisha mitzvah, and therefore we throw them in the garbage only once they're wrapped in a bag. So you wrap them in a plastic bag, and then you can discard them. That is how we get rid of the menorah pieces.
The wicks.
Now the oil. Let's first do the oil. Regarding the oil, so the good news is the oil that's left in your bottle, you can save for next year. You can use it for cooking. You can do whatever you want with it. That never becomes holy. The leftover oil in the bulbs, so you probably only have left from the 8th night. You shouldn't have been accumulating because you used it every night, right? So whatever's left the 8th night, that's what is under question. And if that oil lasted more than 30 minutes, which it should, because you waited till half hour after it says kavim for it to go out before extinguishing it, then in such a case, the remaining oil is not kedusha. Because according to halacha, only the first half hour after nightfall is considered kedusha. So any oil that remains lit afterwards is not kedusha, especially if you were in this class before Hanukkah and you did the Tanai together with us. We did a universal Tanai, remember. Stipulating on the oil that the oil should not be kedusha past when I want to extinguish it, it shall no longer be kedusha. So whatever's left is not kedusha, therefore I have no obligation to burn it. So process of elimination, the only thing left is the wicks. The wicks indeed do have to be burnt on their own and not to be saved until Pesach to burn. A lot of people think that everything in halacha that's supposed to be burned, you can just save till Pesach and burn it then. It's a big problem because it's counterproductive, as the whole reason why you're supposed to burn it is so you don't come to use it. In other words, if it lays around your house, you may come to use it. So in order so you don't come to use it, they say you got to burn it. So people that are going to delay burning it until another 4, 5, 6 months, they're doing counterproductive to the whole purpose of why it's supposed to be burned. It's supposed to be burned, so you get rid of it right away. Same thing as by a fresh challah. All these things, a big misconception. Those who do so, they just don't know the halacha. You're supposed to burn it right away as soon as possible in order so it doesn't become a michshol. So that's the after Hanukkah laws. Any other questions?
Is that why we weren't concerned about that we shouldn't have any oil left from the previous nights? Is that the reason why? Because otherwise we would have oil left.
How would you have left? You would just reuse it the next night.
Oh, is that what you're saying? People reuse?
I mean, what's the point of pouring it? Yeah, you just reuse
No,
it.
I use the cups that come with oil, so it's not really.
Okay, so if you're using those cups, still, if they've already lit a half hour, then the remaining oil is not kedusha. It's not mitzvah. It's not mitzvah oil.
Right.
These cups that are basically disposable, you said you wrap it up and stuff?
Correct. You put them in a plastic bag and you throw them out. The Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch that they're considered mitzvah. They have mitzvah status.
So
mitzvah status.
the wicks is not enough to just rub them up and
No, it's supposed to burn. The wicks we burn. Yeah, put them in an empty can, light a match, it should burn very well. 10, 20 minutes, it'll be gone.
Wicks we burn.
The wicks, yeah, they're saturated in oil. They'll burn very nicely. Okay.
What's their status? What are they called?
They were used for the mitzvah itself, and therefore you can't use them for anything else. They were kadeshem. They are holy for the mitzvah alone. You can't use them for anything else.
But you can throw them away after wrapping them up.
Not the wicks.
Not the wicks.
No, I said the wicks you have to burn.
Okay, why is that?
We're asking, why do you have to burn the wicks versus the bulbs? The reason is as follows. The bulbs is a tashmisha mitzvah. It's holding the fire, okay? However, this is the fire itself. The wick, the oil is the fire itself, and it becomes kedusha for that time. And the wick, since it was used for Kedusha, in essence, you're asking a good question. Why shouldn't it be like schach? We don't have to burn schach. No tough questions in class. It's a good question. I don't right now have the answer for that, but that is the halacha. The halacha is that wicks also have to be burnt. And mainly, as I just said, process of elimination, pretty much wicks is the only thing that has to be burnt. Nothing else does, because the oil is left over from the half hour, after half hour, so it's not kedusha. The bulbs are tashmish mitzvah. You just wrap them, throw them on the menorahs, or tashmish mitzvah. You don't do anything with them. Okay, as some of you may have seen, today's the halacha tonight at exactly 12 o'clock. But Jews are machmer. We begin the day from the night, so we don't start New Year's from midnight. We started New Year's already. So for us, it's already 2020. We always begin the night before, right? Right now, it's Gimel, it's Daled Tavis, so it's already 2020. No, that's what I think. 2020. Yeah, it's Wednesday already. Okay, so in halacha, what is it? Sabach Shem here in Eretz Yisrael, it really makes no difference to us. We don't really live amongst Goyim. Not Goyim that practice New Year's, the Arabs don't practice.
There are Goyim here in this country.
Oh, correct, but not so much.
Too many. You know.
I agree with you on the too many. But it's not as for example, this halacha for me has no relevance because I don't have Gentile neighbors. I'm not going to see Gentile neighbors on the street.
Here in Tsfat.
But anywhere else in the world where you deal with Gentiles, this was always a big shaila. And Dafka the Ramah dealt with it because we know that Sephardim lived in Muslim countries. They didn't really have to deal with Dinei Avodah Zarah because Islam is not idolatry. So they really were spared from dealing with these topics in halacha, while Ashkenazim, which is the majority of Jewry, of course, had to deal with it on a very serious basis. They were, lived in the church. They lived in Christian countries, Christian lands. So many people don't know, and this is what we publicized a few years already, that New Year's is originally a pagan holiday and then turned into a Christian holiday. So it's not just, it's just something secular on the calendar. No, there's a history behind it, and that history is practiced till this very day by, Catholics, right? They do Mass. They go to Mass. It's one of the few times a year. I don't know, they have like 6 or 10 times a year, whatever it is, that they do Mass in the church. And I think tonight is one of them. It's Eve, New Year's Eve, tonight. So they practice for what Jews is idolatry on this night. So it's a holiday of Avodah Zarah. So it enters all these questions, especially being, as the Ramah testifies, it wasn't just that they went to church for Mass on New Year's. They actually was customary in Christian countries for all of the lords, all of the dignitaries, aristocrats, to receive presents from people, and especially their Jewish subjects on this day, or on behalf of the day, on behalf of the holiday. They viewed it as a good luck when you get presents in the beginning of the year. So these are big shalas. What do you do? Are you allowed to give these presents? Today, if you are an employer, can you give a New Year's present? Can you receive a New Year's present? Can you give greetings? Can you tell someone Happy New Year's, et cetera, et cetera? So bottom line is, I want to do this quick. It's good. It was all explained today's daily halacha in length and detail, and that is as follows. There's a big difference that what the Ramah and other poskim regarding other halachas, the Mechaber as well, differentiate is between a practicing Christian and a non-practicing one. Meaning someone who practices, which as I said before is a Catholic, so somebody who's living in Europe, which is I believe majority Catholic, or South America, which is majority Catholic countries, they practice this. So this would be a lot more relevant, the severity of the halacha. In those cases, the halacha is you cannot go out of your way to wish them happy holidays. You're not even supposed to give them Sheila Shalom. You're not even supposed to tell them, how are you? You're supposed to try to avoid greetings on this day, on the day of their holiday, if they practice it. And regarding presents as well, you're not supposed to give them presents. If you have to, then you give before or after. You either delay or you give it beforehand, etc. Now in America, the good news is that the majority of Americans are Protestants. They're not Catholics, so they don't really believe in the New Year's holiday. So because of that, we don't really have this issue. And to most, not all, you do have Catholics in America, but to most Christians in America, they don't necessarily go to church or come into a whole big, prayer service. So since they don't believe in the religion behind the day, there's no issue telling them happy holiday or happy New Year's or even giving them a present for the New Year because they don't believe in the idolatry of the day.
I have a question. If you take a country like France, which is supposed to be Catholic, was a Catholic country. Nowadays, they never had any kind of church, mass, anything on New Year, no, only on the 25th. But nowadays, even less, because very few people are practicing.
They call themselves Catholics, but they're like the Reformed Catholics.
Not even that. They don't practice. Most of the people.
So yeah, it's not the name that makes the difference. It's not the name. I'm not saying that every person who calls himself a Catholic has this halacha belong to them. If they are a practicing Catholic who believes in the meaning of the day, they go to church, they do mass, then that's to those type of Gentiles we have the issue. But even by then, it's just that you don't go out of your way. But so for example, if you're a friend with a Catholic that's a practicing Catholic, don't wish him happy Tzemach or happy New Year's on your Facebook feed. Don't do that. If he happens to write to you and it's going to be offensive not to answer, then the halacha is you're allowed to answer for the sake of peace. So also if you're passing by for the sake of peace, you're allowed to answer, but not go out of your way. But someone who's not practicing, as I said before, it makes no difference. It's much they don't believe in the day.
So the conversation has to go, are you religious? No. Happy New Year!
But I know, I said before, not all practicing Catholics believe in New Year's, in the holiday, meaning anyways. Okay. Moving on from that to Hey Tevis. So first, good news, we're having a big Hey Tevis sale coming up on Thursday. It's Hashem. I'm going to try to personally be here and sell this farm. It's 50% off all physical books. The rest of them is 30%, the virtual books. On the Beis Chabad, yeah. Meaning all books we have here in Israel that are going to be displayed there are going to be 50% off, the hard copies. We're also doing a big, for the world, 30% off and 50% off for whole sets. But that's going to be available. Okay, so regarding Hey Tevis, it's going to be over by the time we meet next. So we're just going to give over a few points on Hey Tevis. So first off, aside for the celebratory aspect of what happened, and I'm sure everyone already knows the history, the main nekudas that are relevant to us for Hey Tevis is what the Rebbe pushed, is that to learn the books, to study the books, to open the books. Of course, to do that, you need to buy the books, but it's to buy the books for the sake of studying the books. Point that the Rebbe said, until I read the Sikha, I always had some bad feeling about it, and then this relieved me. You buy a nice, beautiful set, you buy a nice, beautiful book, you feel very bad using it because it looks so nice, so beautiful on the shelf. You don't want to crinkle the pages. Make it look at this. This is so beautiful. The one I have in my house is horrible. It's horrible. Right? Look at your Likutei Torah book, right?
Yeah.
It's horrible condition. So you almost feel bad using it. The Rebbe says, no. You honor the book by using it, and even if it gets wasted and torn because of use, that's amazing. He is clapping for you. And if you need to buy another one, that's what the Rebbe says. So the purpose of the books is in order to use them, and as we have discussed in previous years, by purchasing Svarim according to many Rishonim and Achronim, Paiskim, you fulfill a mitzvah min ha-Torah of the Kisvu L'chemes Shiur Hazayis. By purchasing a sefer, especially a sefer of Torah Shabbal Peh, you fulfill the mitzvah of writing this Torah. So when you buy a Chumash, when you buy Shulchan Aruch, when you buy a Gemara, in Hebrew and English, it doesn't matter the language, it's the information that's conveyed in the book.
Even if you don't open it?
Well, the purpose of writing it is so you should learn. The purpose of buying it and writing it is so you should learn from it. So that's in fact why some poskim say that the mitzvah has switched from a Sefer Torah to books, because since we can't learn today from a Sefer Torah, you miss the whole point of why you have the mitzvah to write it. So therefore, the mitzvah now is transferred to books. But obviously the purpose is to buy the books and then study them.
Because the Rebbe mentioned this mitzvah of Beit Madi Sfarim.
Correct.
So you could have a your whole house full of
Right.
books, but it's impossible that you will open them all.
Well, you
But
should
still-
try to open them all.
Yeah.
I don't know about
Open
learn
them.
cover to cover, but
Okay.
maybe flip through them cover to cover. But yeah, Bais Malis Farm. It's I have a software that has 100,000 books on it now. I haven't opened all 100,000 books, but what I am able to do is whenever I have a reference to one of those books, I can easily look it up. That's why I learn about new books every day, because so you use it. The point is that it's there to be used. It's there to be studied from.
Is it proper to write a name that you own the book in it?
There's nothing wrong with it if you want it returned to you, if it gets lost.
But we have to write
Like they did right here, you see?
abbreviation that isn't it, we have to write.
We are
abbreviation that
accustomed to
belongs
write
Hashem.
Lashem
Yeah.
Lamed Hey Vav, Lashem Arotzum Laya. It's a custom, yeah. It's a custom to do. It's a good thing to do. Yeah. Another one of the things that the Rebbe discussed is the importance of. The Rebbe discussed about learning Mishnah Berurah, actually. I mentioned learning Mishnah Berurah from the Sefer Mishnah Berurah, yeah.
Connected with Hey Tavis?
Yes, it was Hey Teves Sicha.
Oh.
I think it was this first anniversary of Hey Tevis, Tavshin Mem Vav, Mem Zayin. That the Rebbe mentioned to learn the Beis Yosef, the Shulchan Aruch of Beis Yosef, and the Pirush of the Mishnah Berurah, and Eretz Yidon Val Rebbe. And so the Rebbe also discussed about how you have to honor the Sfarim, respect the Sfarim, the laws of Kveit Sfarim, honoring Sfarim. There's a lot of detailed laws regarding honoring Sfarim. Last year, if you remember, we have a class on it. It should be online that we did on this. We went through a lot of different halachas. But the Rebbe basically said is that physically down here, the robbery of the Sfarim and they're being taken into captivity was caused by an individual who was greedy. But in heaven, it was caused because the Sfarim were screaming to God, they're not respecting us enough. So we're not being respected. So this was the Sfarim's way of rebellion.
So what is it? What does it mean not to respect?
So first off, and first most, the Rebbe said, people aren't learning from them. You have to learn from
That's
them.
the first thing.
That's first and foremost. They're there to be studied, not to be in a museum. Number two, just in general, laws of Kavod Sfarim. For example, you see so many people, and I've even seen Rabbanim, which is such a busha. Look at this.
Yeah.
They go like this. This is Asher to do. It's Asher to do. It's Bron Shulchan Aruch. It's a Rabbi. And he writes that if you see someone do it, tell them not to. Other things that is Asher to do. To take another sefer and put it in between. Like this.
To mark a page.
To mark a page. You can't use a sefer to mark a page.
Even if it is a sikha, for instance.
A book.
A booklet.
No,
A book.
that's a booklet, right? Okay.
Just curious.
Perhaps. I don't want to give a definitive answer, but definitely not to close a book within a book. That's for sure no good. For sure you're not allowed to do that. And there's various. You can't sit on the same surface as a sefer is on. So if there's a sefer on here, I can't just jump on the table.
You could put a sefer on a bench. Even if you're not sitting on it.
No, there's no problem. But that can lead someone to sit on it while it's there. I mean,
What about the practice? You see people, and I have done this, 'cause I thought I learned it somewhere. You place just a copy of the Sikh or something like that.
correct,
when you
that's
go to the
fine, because
bathroom.
you're doing that for the honor of the sefer.
Yeah.
You're doing that to protect from the demon from coming and messing up the information.
When you temporarily leave to go to the bathroom or wherever.
Yeah, when you leave the sefer open,
Not to forget.
you're leaving, but your chavrusa that you didn't know that was there with you is now going to get a chance to get in. And he's not a very nice guy.
So it's the proper thing to do, put something.
100%, yes.
Pen? What are you supposed to put?
Anything you can even. The question, if you can take a sefer and do it with a sefer, is a little bit in question.
Yeah.
But that's the practice. The practice is, will you take anything near you, cover it with it.
So you can do it with a sitter.
Technically, yes. The best thing, if you have something else, use something else. What is written is you should use a talus. I have in my office, I have a little towel. It's like a blanket, okay, a little blanket, like a baby blanket. put it on top of my siddur, top of my stuff, my sefer, and you're good. But also, if you're leaving only momentarily, you don't have to do that. If you're leaving for, a minute, 2 minutes, and you're coming back, it's only if you're leaving for a little while.
But if we want to do it for a little while, is it the same order? Can we cover like a siddur with the?
So that's why it's mutter, but the best thing is, as I said before, to not use a sefer, to use a cloth or a towel or a tissue. Yeah, to use something else. The lashon of the poskim is using a talus. A talus is not just a talus with strings, but anything that really covers.
Can I ask you about Mishnah Berurah? Did the Rebbe say we should buy the Mishnah Berurah? Yes, we should study it on Hay tables. I didn't get it.
He said that it should be studied. He didn't speak about buying. I believe he spoke about buying the Shulchan Aruch of the Mechaber. Yes, yes, he did. Absolutely. Did he speak about buying the Mishnah Berurah? Could be. I don't recall right now.
I heard that, yes.
But at least study it the entire year?
No, he said it should be studied. The idea is it should be studied. In those areas that we don't have the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, we study Mishnah Berurah.
Yeah.
He insisted a lot on the Be'eretev.
Not in the Sikha.
Not the Sikha, but before,
that's more probably for Yeridea.
Yeah.
For Yeridea, where we don't have Mishnah Berurah. But in our Chaim, we have Mishnah Berurah. He's the next one up. Okay. There's a lot more on this. You can go on my website. We have a lot of the Kavod Svarim shilas that are there.
What about Tachanun? Some people say we shouldn't say Tachanun. They have minhag not to say Tachanun. I mean, 770.
Tali behargasha.
Tali behargasha.
That's what I would say. I say Tachanun.
We say it here. So.
Okay.
But some people don't.
Okay, no problem. We'll leave them what they want. We'll move on. We were at the end, I believe, of chapter 5 here, Netilas Yadayim after selected actions, which is the end of Siman Daled in the Shulchan Aruch, dealing with washing hands after certain actions are done. I believe we finished Levaya. We went through the Levaya process, what you do after Levaya. We discussed bloodletting, which today is really getting a blood test, donating blood. We discussed haircuts. And I believe this is what we're up to, and we're almost done. Touching animals, a Gentile, a heretic, a woman who is a nida. Do any of the above require one to wash hands afterwards? So let's start with the last one, a nida. A nida is a biblical impurity that gives it over to someone who touches them. The only thing is that it doesn't help to wash your hands to get rid of that impurity. It doesn't do anything. So there is no halacha that you need to wash hands. Now, there's also no halacha that you need to go to the mikveh afterwards. Now how can a person touch a nida? Daughter. It's mutter for a father to hug his daughter. It doesn't matter if the daughter's a nida or not a nida. Often she is, especially before she's married. She never went to mikveh. So of course she's a nida. Nonetheless, you don't do anything. You don't need to wash hands. You don't need to tub in a mikveh. However, some are careful to do so. This is, I don't know who, but some are meticulous that they wash their hands after touching a nida. Regarding a guy and heretic, or let me first start regarding an animal. Regarding an impure animal, if you shook hands with a cow, then there's no problem. But if you shook hands, let's say, with a monkey, or another impure animal, then some place can say you should wash your hands. You just touched gimel klipas hatmeis.
Yeah.
So you should wash your hands afterwards. Yeah. So writes the Yefei Lelev, the Leichaim, and Ruachaim. These are all great rabbanim from Ijmar, from Turkey. Great Turkey. What were they called then? The Chacham Bashis. The chief rabbis, they were called Chacham Bashis of Turkey. They ruled you got to wash your hands after touching impure animals. However, the Alter Rebbe, as well as other poskim, the Mishnah Berurah, the Shari Tshuva, all conclude it is not necessary. They don't give off impurity. And that is in truth the ruling we find in the Rambam, that animals, live animals, don't have any impurity shaykh to them.
To cat, dogs.
Nothing.
You just wash your
Now,
hands.
you may want to wash your hands for hygienic reasons, but You don't have to use a kli and this, and you should use soap also. Now, what about a guy or a heretic? So the Poskim write very similarly, that it's not the same idea that you should wash hands after touching an impure animal. Those Poskim who say you should. Said also if you touch a Gentile or you shook hands with a heretic, they are carrying this gimel klipos hatmeis, which can get on you, and therefore you should wash your hands. Once again, here too, those poskim who say by an impure animal it's not necessary here will also agree it's not necessary, and this is the way we rule. It is not necessary to wash your hands afterwards. There is nothing that gets contaminated. A Gentile, just like an animal, does not contract any impurity and does not give over any impurity. So there's nothing to be removed if to need washing hands. Based on this, someone actually asked me the other day, so if so, the Gentiles don't have impurity and don't give off impurity, how did all the oil in the temple become impure during Hanukkah? Who defiled them? The Goyim, they don't have impurity. It's true. If a guy picks up a vase of oil, they don't impure. It doesn't become defiled. They don't have impurity.
I heard that it really was pure, but it didn't have that special seal, so that it's like.
Well, they thought it wasn't.
They thought it wasn't.
They thought it wasn't pure, but why would they think it's not pure if they knew it was Goyim? So there's a number of answers. But first, once you mention the seal, they say that the biggest Hanukkah miracle was not the fact that the oil lasted for 8 days, but that all of Jewish people agreed to one hashgacha. It was, they had one Kohen Gadol stamp on the jar, and everyone said it was kosher. That was the biggest miracle. That was a joke. Anyways, so there's a few answers. One of the answers is that the Goyim actually took nevelas, carcasses, which dead animals do have impurity, and a dead Gentile does have impurity, and touched the items with it. Others say they took idolatry. They took either foods of idolatry, or they took, which is called the takrubas of or the idols themselves, and touched the various items with it. Others say that already at that time, the sages decreed a rabbinical impurity on Gentiles called zav. So if that's the case, which is not yet historically proven, but if that's the case, and they were rabbinically impure, and they were able to defile the items, at least rabbinically. Okay. The last subject here in this chapter is a subject that already in the previous half of the chapter we touched upon, and we're going to do it fully now, and that is the issur of learning Torah or davening after during certain actions. So we explained in length in the past that not all actions that require hand washing prohibit Torah learning or davening, as some only contract the impure spirit and not dirt. And only if there's actual dirt is there a prohibition of learning or davening. Even in a case that you contracted dirt and there's a prohibition in learning and davening, you are allowed to think words of Torah at that time. So even though you cannot think Torah in a bathroom, if somehow a person soiled his fingers with feces or with urine, he is allowed to think words of Torah. Think. Even though in the bathroom that's not allowed. But to speak, obviously, that he would not be allowed to do so. Just like a person can't daven and can't learn, he also may not answer amen. He also may not say a bracha during this time. You can't do anything until you clean the hands from the dirt. So let's go through the actions. There's a list of 6 actions that cause dirt, and then we're going to go through some bodily fluids as well that have this status. So let's go through them. A person who touched the normally covered parts of the body, stuck his finger on his skin, the hands receive both impurity and dirt, so you can't daven or learn. Number 2, until you clean them, a person who scratches his head, and we say explicitly, over one who merely placed his hand on his head, or even Rabbi says it's to dry his hair, but to not actually scratch between the hairs is not required to wash. There's no impurity. There's no dirt. Okay, it's only scratching the hair. One who touched earwax, one who touched mucus from the nose, one who slept without clothing, meaning he wasn't fully clothed. So we assume when you sleep, not being fully clothed, that you touch the parts of your body. So that therefore you'd be usher to daven non Torah until you clean your hands. and a person who used the bathroom and touched the normally covered parts of the body or got his hands dirty in the process. So in all these cases, a person would need to clean his hands before davening or learning. Ideally, you should go wash your hands right away, but if there's a delay, then as we said in the past, you just rub your hands on something. Okay, you can rub your hands on a table, on a shirt, on your friend's shirt, on anything that works. Okay, to clean, and you're good to go. You can start learning and davening. When you get water, you'll go ahead and wash hands in water to get rid of the unclean spirit. Now let's go through some bodily liquids. So blood is not considered it's not considered dirt. So therefore, if a person has blood on their hands, there's still a lot of learn Torah, there's still a lot of daven in the process. It's not a problem.
So why do we have to wash our hands after we take the blood?
Oh, that's different. That's because it's a kazas dam. It took a nice amount of blood. It's called a kazas dam, bloodletting. It's similar to bloodletting. That's a different case.
Did you get the money?
Saliva also does not require hand washing. Obviously, feces and urine would require hand washing. Person who changed a baby's diaper would require either cleaning or hand washing, one of the two, as we said before. That's it. That's chapter 5 in the book, and now we're going to read chapter 5 in the Shulchan Aruch. We finished chapter 4 in the Shulchan Aruch, chapter 5 in the book. Now we're doing chapter 5 in the Shulchan Aruch, and we don't have it in the book. It wasn't part of this book. I have another file on it. I'm going to pick it up right now. Okay, this next Siman Hay, it talks about actually a very general subject that applies to blessings, prayers, etc. And that is the kavanah you need to have by a blessing. The kavanah you need to have by davening, by a blessing. Now, why is it here? How did it end up here of all places? Siman Hay, it seems like way out of place. Should be, before Birchasa. The morning blessings are only come up in chapter 46. We're in chapter 5. So how does, tzitzis, tefillin? The reason is because our first blessing of Asher Yatzon, the kind of Shama, is discussed here. So that in the next siman, Vav Ben Zayin discusses the blessing of Asher Yatzon, the kind of Shama. So therefore, I guess as a preface for that, I've already brought here the laws of a kavanah. So let's read it inside. We're going to go into the Alter Rebbe in different afraid. You can. Oh, then no, didn't you have the Alter Rebbe? Yeah, but I'm reading not in the Alter Rebbe, so you'll see the difference. Nikaven beberchasei pirish hamidus. A person must intend while saying a blessing, first and foremost, the meaning of the words. We've discussed in the past that paying attention to your blessings, paying attention to your davening, is not just a nice thing to do. It's not just a matter of, have some kavanah, concentration, make it special, make it real, but rather, according to some poskim, it's actually required according to Halacha in order to validate. Some poskim say that a blessing that was said without intent is not a blessing. Because who did you bless if you didn't intend to bless?
What do you call a blessing without intent?
What do you call a blessing without intent?
Yeah.
Oh, a person, for example, didn't understand the words. For example, let's say you went over to a host's home and they gave you the most fabulous meal, and you were, but you guys don't speak the same language. When you were done, someone went over to you and had you read in transliteration to French, thank you in their language, but you had no clue what you were saying. In your mind, did you tell them thank you? In your mind, no. So thoughts count. So God knows if a person's not paying attention to the blessing, he's not paying attention to what he's saying, then it's empty.
But what case, for instance, when you say...
You don't know the words. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know the meaning.
So you are completely ignorant. You say, whatever, who doesn't know what it means?
First of all, number one, not everyone knows what it means.
Huh?
Not everyone knows what it means. I didn't start understanding davening until I was 18 years old. I had not have a clue what I was saying.
The words themselves.
Yeah, the words themselves. I had no clue what I was saying. Zero clue. You can't just take for granted that we know the language. If you don't learn it, you won't know it.
You mean
Unless you know Hebrew. If anyone who's a foreigner, who's not a born and bred Israeli who learns Hebrew, you don't know the language. You don't know what you're saying. You don't understand what you're saying.
So the people who don't know it's better to daven in English or in their
That's why there's a whole discussion in Shulchan Aruch. If someone doesn't understand Hebrew, what's the better? Should they daven in English? And there's a very strong argument to say that they should. They should specifically daven in English, not in Hebrew, because if they don't understand what they're saying, it's not a tefillah.
Tzedek said a month ago, he said for healing.
Yeah, I was going to say it.
Who said that?
You
I
said
that.
yeah. Tehillim has no value if you say it in English.
Because Tehillim is the words making the effect. Tehillim is not the mitzvah of davening. The mitzvah of davening has to come from you. Mitzvah Tehillim is, even people who know Hebrew don't understand Tehillim.
Yeah.
It's very, even when you read it in English, you don't understand what's going on. Even when you read the English translation, it's like poetry. It's very hard to understand. It's very hard to grasp. You would need Pirushim in order to understand it. So bottom line is that for sure Tehillim is to be said in Hebrew, but as I said before, davening, benching, the main thing is for you to understand. So what we try to encourage is as follows. Say it in Hebrew, but learn the English. But if you, whatever reason is, you want to daven in English, you don't have time to learn the Hebrew, whatever it is, and yes, there's a very strong argument to make. You should daven in English. You shouldn't daven for the Yamid in English, and the Lord. That's something else.
The guy in 7th grade, they would do that.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the first few words, which also means, by the way, when you're asking to pay attention. Sometimes we habitually say brachas. I don't even remember if I said a bracha. Often that happens in the morning, especially in the morning blessings. Chabad customs say it right away. Those who say it in shul, so you wait a little bit, you're a little more. But those who, according to us, we say it right away. When you first wake up, the mind is like, I don't know scientifically how to explain it, but it's like, it's all over the place. Sometimes you can find yourself at the end of brachas and you don't know how you got there. So, you have to pay attention, to focus. Know what you're saying and focus on what you're saying. Number one. Number two, because she asked her Hashem, when a person mentions God's name, and that's really the main focus of the siman is God's name in the blessings. When a person mentions the name of Hashem, he has to concentrate on the meaning of the word, of the name. Different names have different meanings, right? We have like Kim, we have Yud Vav Kei. So it says like this. But Adnos Shehu Adain Hakel, when we say the name of Adnos, which is Yud Vav Kei, right? We don't read Yud Vav Kei the way it is, of course. We say Hashem. Right? We say Hashem. It's Adni. So a person is to have in mind when he says that, that Hashem is the master of all, that he is the master of the creation, he's the master of the world. So that's in the saying of it, because as I said before, it's written one way and said a different way. So the pirush of the word that we're saying is Adnos, is that he's the master of the world. The meaning of the word that we're reading, that's written in the Yud Vav Kei, is that he was, is, and will be, that he is forever, omnipotent, he surpasses time. So those are the two kavanas you're always assuming you say Baruch to Hashem, Yud Vav Kei. One is that he's the master of the world, and two, that he always was, is, and will be. Now, the Pais can mention that, sometimes it's kind of hard to do this every single time you say a bracha. So what you can do is in every single morning before you start brachas, you say, God, you know how difficult this is. I am hereby stipulating that every time that I mention your name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, I am intending on your mastership of the world, and as well as your omnipotency that you always was, is, and will be. And then you could say brachas on autopilot. So that's what some places can suggest. In fact, in some Siddurim, not Chabad, but if you look in other Siddurim, Ashkenazi and Sfard, I don't know about Sephardi, the Eish Lavan Butchach, he wrote a Siddur called Tefillah LeDavid, and he wrote a little Tefillah there in the beginning of Yehi Ratzon, that you make this condition, it's stipulation on the name. So a lot of them took this paragraph of his, and they put it in the beginning of the Siddur. The problem is that often many people say this, they don't even know what they're saying. So the stipulation doesn't have the kavanah.
Another one, it's one of the
If you didn't understand what you stipulated, then obviously it doesn't work.
So is this something we can do? Are you giving your endorsement of this?
Yeah, I see no issue with doing it. It's brought by the Butchach. He was a chussid. He was a Talmud of the Levi Yitzchak Barditchev. He's acceptable.
So what is exactly again? What are the? I don't
Again, listen, it's a Halacha and Shulchan Aruch that says, as we just read, the Alter Rebbe brings it, right? He's inside the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah.
Tell us, how does the Alter Rebbe write it? What's his wording? Read it in English. You want to tell us?
So what?
You want to tell us how the Alter Rebbe writes
says-
this Halacha?
He says, when articulating Hashem's name, one should have in mind the meaning of the name as it is pronounced. If it's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which connotes existence, we should not only have in mind that He's the Lord of all things, but also exists in the past, present, and the future simultaneously. When, however, His name is not only pronounced, but also written as Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, one has to have in mind only that He's the Lord of all things.
Right. When it's written as Aleph, Dalet, we didn't get to that yet. Then yes, you only have that in mind. When you say Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, since it's read as Adni, and it's written as Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, so you have both in mind. Both aspects of it. Let's see over here. I also have from the Alter Rebbe, I did a translation. And
to cover you saying.
when saying the name of God, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, one should intend that God is master of the entire universe and that God is eternal. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to the other name soon, but the point is that this is a halacha, so this is what we're supposed to do, but it's kind of hard, especially in davening. You know, many times you say Hashem's name in davening, it's kind of hard. So the best thing, do the stipulation. What do you have to lose?
What's the stipulation again? It's not written
In the beginning, no, it's not written ourselves, but you can do it yourself. You don't have to read any specific one. You can do it yourself. In the morning before breakfast, you say, God, I am having in mind, by the way, what is written on Yom Yom, that you should do this for the Kabbalistic explanations. It says like this in Yom Yom, that ideally you're supposed to daven according to the Kabbalistic unifications, but since we don't know, not on the level, therefore we say, God, accept it as if I had prayed with the Kabbalistic concentrations, unifications. So you're looking for it?
I found a rather odd scroll.
Okay, let's see if it's there. Let's see if it's there.
Every time you should do it every time. It's a once a day thing, once a year, once in a lifetime.
It's good to do every day, once a
Every
day.
morning.
Do once a day. Yeah, every day. The Butcher writes every day. No, it's not. But you can just say it. You don't need a sitter. Just say it. So speak to God straight up. Speak to Him
Every
straight.
time I'm saying the name of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei name, I'm meaning to have the Havana XYZ.
Yeah. Again, it's two kavanas. It's very simple. Master of the world, eternal.
Actually, they have a lead-in where they say exactly this, but they don't have a prayer that reminds us, but they explain exactly this in the lead-in.
Well,
What is it, Atro? Atro?
Yeah,
Maybe this was put out before the app. Oh, this is for. They
oh,
need
it's
to
a
put a little.
one? Okay.
They need to do a little shortcut. Have a
Yeah.
shortcut.
Yeah.
Okay. Here he writes that a lot of Siddurim printed it. Anyways, okay. Moving along. This, by the way, this tonight is only for the names of Hashem. It doesn't work for the rest of davening.
It's already a lot.
I mean to tell you, you're really praiseworthy, and I think you're really, good night.
You have to pay attention to the words you're saying. Anyways, okay. Baskir Elikim. Now, when a person mentions God's name Elikim, you should intend that he's powerful and he's all capable and he incorporates all the powers. So this is outcome. This is the end of the sif. Very short sif about the importance of God's name. We're going to discuss a few different things about
What
this.
version of Hashem's name was that last piece?
Elikim. He discusses only 2 names. There's 7 divine names, as we know, and there's a lot more of the non-7 names that can't be erased. He only here discusses the 2 main ones, Yud Kei Vav Kei and Elikim. Yud Kei Vav Kei is, as we said, master of the world and eternity, and Elikim is all-powerful, strong, like Gvura, Elikim.
And you can use the same approach. You have to do that.
Yeah, tonight. You do the same tonight, yes, in the morning. Yes. Well, so as he mentioned, the Alter Rebbe here points out that when you're reading Adni, like it's spelled out that way in the Siddur, it's not Yud Kei Vav Kei, then you only have in mind that he's the master of the entire universe, not the Yud Kei Vav Kei intent of eternity. The Alter Rebbe adds in the intent of Shem Elikim that you have in mind that he's almighty, who has the ability to rule over the upper and lower worlds, both the upper and lower worlds. So we added that in, that he's ruler of everywhere. Punctuation, punctuating God's name. So first, let me first discuss how to say Hashem's name properly. The Alter Rebbe brings, and you should have this halacha by you. Look in Halacha 2 by the Alter Rebbe. Why don't you read it to us in English? Halacha 2.
When the name is written, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, the Aleph should be pronounced with a Chatav Patach, for this is the vowel that's given in the scripture. Whenever the name...
Let me say what that means. The Alter Rebbe here brings an opinion which we don't follow. This is the first opinion. It says when you say Yud Kei Vav Kei, you should pronounce it as Idoi, not as Adoi. Idoi. Chatav Patach. It's like a chirik. It's not a patach. It's a chatav patach, which is a squeezed patach. It's like you don't really pronounce ah. Today we all say ah. Even Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, we all say ah. So here it says, this opinion says say eh.
We don't follow that.
Hungarian Hasidim?
You've heard people say that?
Is it the same idea?
No, that's in the end. That's something else.
Okay.
This is the beginning of the name. I have never seen anyone do this, but it's possible some people do follow. Continue, I'm sorry, go ahead.
When, however, the name is written as Yud Kei Vav Kei, there are those who pronounce the Aleph with the Shva, for this is the vowel of the corresponding initial letter, which is the Yud of the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Idonai. That's how they say it.
Others pronounce the Aleph with the Chatav Patach, using the same vowel as the Aleph in the name of Aleph Dalet Yud.
Right. Okay, so these are anything else?
No, nothing else.
Okay, so again, so there's 2 ways of how it's pronounced. Of Yud Kei Vav Kei, bottom line is that the custom of all Jewry is we say it with a patach and not with a chirik or any other way of saying it. Okay. Now, however, there is a difference between how Ashkenazim and Sephardim pronounce the later part of Yud Kei Vav Kei, of Adni, and that is as follows. We all agree that it's vocalized, it's vowelized with a kamatz, right? Kamatz is So it's supposed to be said. I'll say the pasuk of Baruch Atah Adonai Lamdei Nichukecha. It's with an However, Sephardim have a big problem. Why? They don't have the concept of an The kamatz and patach sounds the same. It's the same vowel by them. So they say Baruch Atah Adonai Lamdei Nichukecha. Many Ashkenazim say you're not saying Hashem's name. What is this word Adonai? That's not Hashem's name. So they say you should never go to a Parsha Zachar reading to a Sephardi shul because they don't pronounce the kamatzes properly. And they claim that we're the ones who are mixed up in our pronunciation of God's name because we don't know how to really say a kamatz. So basically, it's a debate on how Hashem's name is to be said.
The kamatz means closed, so you have to close your mouth. It has to be off.
Right.
Not
But they don't.
Patach means open.
Right,
It's
right. Yeah, that's I'm not expertise in
you don't
the difference.
There's
I understand, but they have what that's their tradition.
They call it
Bottom line is
patach
like
and
this.
kamatz.
Ashkenazim are to say it like Ashkenazim with an A. Sephardim are to say it like the Sephardi tradition with an A. And everyone should respect the other's tradition. But what this means is that in schools, they should not teach Ashkenazi kids like the Sephardi way of saying it, of A. It should still remain A. He writes like this: all of the poskim of today came out vehemently against those Ashkenazim who decided to switch from the reciting of God's name with a kamatz and to start saying like the Sephardim with a patach. They have an obligation to say it like the tradition of their forefathers and not to swerve from it. Regarding mentioning, pronouncing the letters of the Yud K Vav K. So notice how I always say K. What's K?
You're trying to avoid the hey.
The letter is a hey. It's not K. There's no letter in the Hebrew alphabet called a K.
We know what you're doing. We do it too.
Right. So why?
Because we want to avoid saying.
So the Chassam Sofer. So it's like this. Min adin, it's forbidden to say God's name the way it's written. So you can't say, what they call themselves witnesses, the word they use, we can't say that. That's the name we can't say. But the letters, perhaps we can just read the letters. The letter Yud, the letter Hey, etc., etc. So some Sefer writes in the Tshuva that you can't even say that part of the Isser, it says like this. The Gemara says that anyone who's noikiv, who haigas Hashem, ba'ishis ein chaykel mahaba. The Sanhedrin says anyone who pronounces God's name the way it's written does not have a portion of the world to come. It's sacrilege. The question is, what is this referring to? So the common understanding is to say the word, as I said, etc., witnesses, to say the actual name. That's the problem. He's machadish that it's really going on the letters, that to say the letters is a problem. So you can't say Yud Ke Vav Ke with a hey, because that's considered as if you're pronouncing the actual letters of God's name, and therefore it's forbidden.
But he allows the word? He allows the word?
No, that too he doesn't allow.
Okay.
He doesn't allow either. And that's why the Jewish tradition is that we say Yud Ke Vav Ke, we never actually say Hashem's name there. And for that reason as well, many Siddurim, take a look and open up the Siddur, find me one place where it says Yud Ke Vav Ke.
No, it's Yud.
No Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yeah, no Yud Ke Vav Ke.
No, because we shouldn't.
Look, see this. Any Yud Ke Vav Ke's in here?
So as Yud.
In the Tehillim, however, there is.
Yeah,
Look in the
there is,
Tehillim.
yeah.
So the reason for that is because the Yud Ke Vav Ke has a special holiness to it, and we don't want anything happening to the Siddur. It can end up in a not proper place. So therefore, we just want to avoid it.
So we shouldn't put the Tehillim at the end.
They're a brave Siddur.
Shouldn't put the Tehillim at the end of the Siddur.
Right. It's an interesting question. Oh, that's what's done.
This doesn't make sense.
Okay, Emirates, this is for the most part, this is the end of Hay. There's two more points we'll discuss next week, Emirates Hashem, and we're going to begin Both Zion.
Yeah.